I'd like to welcome everyone today to the LFO experience. This is Alexandra, your host, and today we have a special guest, Neil Ong. He is a oneness trainer and Diksha giver here in Las Vegas, and I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. I appreciate it. I know what you guys do, and of course, the amazing light workers that you are. So I'm just honored to be a part of anything you guys do.
Oh, you're wonderful. And we are just so honored to have you here because we love everything you do.
Do my best.
You do great. And for our guests today that don't know what Diksha is or oneness, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess with my history, I was doing some kind of meditation and looking into like spiritual practices. Of course, I grew up Catholic, being Filipino. A lot of us are Roman Catholic, but I came across like meditation fairly early, and then was studying some Buddhist practices because meditation was easy for me to take on. It's like, okay, sit quiet, see what either comes about, or quieting the mind, that kind of thing. So I came across this meditation. It was called a oneness diksha and meditation. And a friend said, "Hey, Neil, we're going to go to this meditation. Do you want to come?" And I said, "Okay, sure. Absolutely." So when I got to this meditation circle, it was about a dozen people, and we were just going to sit for meditation. And then they had also said that after or during our meditation, they would give us a diksha blessing or a oneness blessing. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like, I'm totally up for that. Any blessing is a good thing, right?
Right.
So we started, and then they came around and then gently placed their hands on my head, and then I sat there and I was like, okay, this is the blessing part. And then after they're done, maybe 20-30 seconds, moved on to give someone else the blessing. So that was how I came across it. But what it is, and how I like started to look for what it is, or just get more information, was because I started to experience something from it. Like, I didn't know what it was at the time, or wouldn't label it or name it, but I wanted to go back to that meditation, and I experienced like a little bit of peace, more peace than just sitting quietly alone in my room. Like, it was something that I felt was a happening. So I later found out that, of course, this blessing is like a simple prayer where the practitioner calls on his or her divine, and the recipient could do the same. And the intention is for awakening. So it's like a divine transfer of energy that has nothing to do with the practitioner, but asking for awakening for whoever they're giving it to. So I like that. I like that a lot. And then I found out, of course, the founders of where this came from, the Oneness University, Sri Amat Bhagavan, their sole purpose was to aid in the awakening of humanity. I mean, it was very single focused. There wasn't like, all these different practices or teachings. There wasn't one book that they, like kind of read from, and it was like the scripture or anything like that. It was just single focused. They wanted to help humanity evolve and shift to a higher state of consciousness. So that's how I came about Diksha, and then I came to like search for what Diksha is. And then now, in just its simplest, I guess, definition, the gurus like that existed a long time ago, they used to say that they would have disciples and train their disciples these spiritual teachings, and then when that guru was ready to retire, they would choose a disciple that was most knowledgeable or carried the teachings really well, and they would give him one single diksha or oneness blessing, and it was to bless them for their awakening. And then that disciple would step into that place of guru and then start to teach. So with I think with the like obvious shift in consciousness the world's experiencing, with the founders again, Sri Amat Bhagavan, who wanted to aid and make this shift happen more quickly, they just made this diksha blessing or this oneness blessing for everyone to practice and then just give. So the initiates, instead of like studying with a guru for 20 years or something like that, they really wanted to make this blessing more readily available to the common person because they wanted to aid in the shift of humanity.
and for everyone to awaken.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I think that's, you just taught me something I didn't know about this. It's interesting about the intention. Their whole intent was for humanity to awaken. And when a person receives or gives Diksha, they also are using their intent to awaken. So that's just fascinating because we are working in our own process and for the together with another person using intent to awaken. To me that's fascinating because in the Bible when they say that when two people come together, with a prayer or whatever,
Yeah.
gives it more power. So we're giving ourselves more power to awaken.
That's right. I mean, intention's a good word, but even when we think about it, intention could be easily interchangeable with prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if we're in this space and we're intending this, it's almost like prayer. You know,
It is.
Does anything truly or remotely exist without spirit in it? You know, so
Right.
yeah, when two people have this intention, it just multiplies it. You know, when two people have this prayer, it just multiplies it. 1+1 = 3, and then when we see bigger groups,
Yes.
it grows exponentially. So
Yeah, and I've witnessed that. I don't know, I'll share my story with you of Diksha. When I was first introduced to it, it was somebody from your group. One of your Diksha givers was at another meditation group that I was at. And I just was so intrigued by her. And she talked about this Diksha and gave me a blessing right there in the room after this meditation. And the next 4 days, I honestly was shifting so much. My energy was, I'd almost stay stuck for a second and then move. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced, but I knew something happened to me, and then emotions were coming up and all these things were coming up, and I didn't necessarily know how to handle it because I hadn't gone and, to the Unity Center and learned what I was going through, which then right as soon as I could, I went to the next meeting, and then thank goodness because I understood what was happening to me, because I didn't understand, like when you start, after you get Diksha and all these memories or these things start coming up. She gave this great, Deborah Aspara gave this great talk, and she was saying you've got to breathe into it when it comes, let yourself, and that really helped me in the future because I was going through so much at that time. So it's really great to have more information when you go through it first Diksha
yeah,
experience.
It is interesting because even myself, I didn't have any knowledge or any information on Diksha per se. So when I came across it, or when some people come across it, it could be either way. They could have some kind of information and they could be a seeker and understand it and then want to experience it. Or they could just have this experience, and then once they have the experience, will seek to understand, like look for the information.
Yeah.
And that's true of all spiritual awakening. When people are going through any kind of shift, they will have like some kind of experience, whether that's internally or with their emotions, they feel something, or even if they have some kind of physical experience, then they'll start to search for the answer or search for the description of why it happened and something like that.
Yeah.
But the baseline of all of it is that it really starts this process of learning or wanting to learn or yearn for why are we here, what's our existence, and what we're here to do. And ultimately that just brings us closer to our divine or our God or whoever we refer to as the source. And that's what it starts. It really starts this flowering of spiritual growth. And I think in the Western culture, we've kind of been a little detached from that, or maybe forgot it, so to speak, because a lot of Eastern cultures, or like in India, their spirituality is lived really closely on a daily basis, like everyone, it's throughout their culture.
And where so many times in this country, yes, there are people that are religious or whatever, but how many people I've seen, been myself one that didn't have a daily practice. You just are living your life and you forget about that importance. Even though you feel something's missing, this is how I felt, I would say, we don't get as much exposure to a daily practice as they do in India, I would say, and stuff like like that. So, I mean, it's interesting.
Well, it's a great topic because the difference, or let's say the one thing that is kind of different between religions and going to a meditation or seeking like a Diksha blessing or looking for some kind of meditation or energy transfer, is that we're looking to create or form a unique and individual connection with God. Whereas like religions or organized religion oftentimes will go to a sanctuary where we're looking to recite some prayers verbatim and not breathe in that energy to having that connection. I mean, I love church, and I grew up Catholic, of course. Like I said, I'm Roman Catholic, and there was something that I wanted deeper. It was a more closely relationship, or a more closer relationship to my divine. And I think it was only when I started my individual path, like my individual search, that really began to flower. That really began to express itself. So,
yeah, that makes sense. I think when the Diksha started coming in my life was when I felt like I was, praying, that prayer of, I surrender, please let me feel that connection. And it was months that I was going through this deep surrender and knowing that somehow I was going through the ego death and in a lot of pain, because when you're going through that process, like you really want the connection, but you don't know how to get there. Because you've never been taught anything to get there. You're just in this, pain. And I was there for a while until I came across, some different meditation groups. But then when I really felt the connection the most when I went to the Diksha circles. And then, and after that, my own personal connection actually led me to, this love, forgiveness, oneness, the LFO experience. I mean, I saw it in a vision, and that this is something I was supposed to do, and that's how it began. But it's from all of that, like that experience of trying to deeply connect. So I know that this LFO experience is my divine trying to get me in line where I need to be.
Yeah, I love the LFO experience, and that's how you and I met.
Right.
We were in Mount Charleston, and it was amazing to be a part of that weekend, because again, the LFO, what it stands for is love, forgiveness, and oneness. And like we're speaking of off air, was that in a lot of practices there is an aspect of clearing, or like forgiveness, or setting right relationships, or doing the work, and then that would bring the next step of love, or tapping into that energy, tapping into that source, the teaching, so to speak. And then eventually, of course, it's all because of oneness, to create with our higher selves, to connect with our divine, and then really be in that space. So it was easy for us, when we had the opportunity to go to the LFO, to be a part of the LFO, to say yes,
Because it follows right in line with what you guys
absolutely
believe. Yeah. Well, we're just so excited to have you here today, because you're going to do a special thing and do a Diksha blessing and a oneness.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to. The Diksha, there's two ways that we do give Diksha.
Okay.
And one is how I previously described. We could give a hands-on Diksha, and the hands-on Diksha, or oneness blessing, is where we would simply, make a connection, get into that space, and then ask our divine to please give the blessing for awakening for this person. And then we would lightly place our hands on the recipient's head, and then we would just feel this, transfer of energy, or this prayer for this recipient. And then the other form of giving Diksha, we also give is intention. And by intention is, like we talked about, having that prayer or setting that intention. But in this case, we don't need to, physically touch someone or put our hands on the head. We can give it through distance, or of course, if they're in front of us, or in a room of people, or even like this, we could have that intention. As long as the recipient would like to receive it, then, absolutely, we'll send them a intention Diksha, and then they could just focus on, their breath and be in a meditative space, and then, they'll enjoy it.
Okay. Now, do you do that along with the oneness, or the Diksha?
The oneness awakened Diksha. The oneness awakened Diksha, we do give. I think you experienced that at Unity Center. The oneness awakened Diksha is a Diksha that Deborah Upsar, myself, and Reverend Sophia give, and that was we received a certificate in India for our awakening. Basically, the monks there, who are in very high states, I mean, they're out of this world. You can be around them, and literally, it'll feel like this energy is coming through them. It's you could be like 5 feet from them, and you can feel
You
this.
can feel the energy coming to you.
Yeah, it's
So you're
amazing.
blessed just being there.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So when we had went to India and went through these processes, they get into these high states and they actually check these awakening levels. And if they certify you awakening, then you can give this special diksha called the Oneness Awakened Diksha.
Okay.
And it's just simply diksha from an awakened person, and the intention or the way it's conducted is slightly different, but it's
So whenever
it's a
you
very
give
strong
diksha, is it the awakened one? Is because you're
yes.
awakened? Oh, I see.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's.
But that's how we refer to it. We call it the Oneness Awakened Diksha. And then that's when you'll see us, like when we're in our meditations, we'll just go ahead and sit and either put our hands up or sit in meditation with you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's a very strong intention for, of course, the awakening of everyone who's participating. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds beautiful. You ready to give some of that awakened diksha
Yeah,
today?
sure. Are we starting now?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
See if we've got the music ready. Yeah.
So I was here before, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love what you guys do, and it's so nice to be in this space with you because, of course, I know in Las Vegas a lot of us are in these circles, and it's really nice to come across and interact with people who are doing the work and really causing or affecting or wanting to affect change, in our community.
It is. I guess I have a quick question. Maybe you can answer this. Like we were talking a little bit off air about people that become reclusive because they're going through so much. And I can do that once in a while too, and because it is such a big shift. Do you find that's the normal part, or because I know I have this, I want to do this work. It's something, but I'll find myself sometimes pulling back.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's just when I'm processing or needing to.
Yeah, with any form of growth, whether it's personal growth, spiritual growth, I mean, watching a plant grow, obviously it'll take, days to watch a plant grow.
Good point.
But there's stretching involved. There's, like a seed coming out of its shell. There's struggle. There's times of growth, and then times of huge growth. And then there's times where just before the flower buds, it seems like something may not be happening or struggle in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as humans, when we get into these processing, we're facing or doing some kind of clearing, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely natural, and it's not like our job to have less of those. Everyone wants to have less pain and more happiness, right?
Right.
Less pain or dealing with the issues, and more just enjoying or feeling happiness or bliss. But it's necessary, because without that struggle, there would be no growth. If we didn't see, where we had these energies or things to clear, then we wouldn't have growth. So yeah, absolutely, it's necessary.
Yeah. So be easy on yourself when you go through that, right?
That's good advice. Yeah, I mean, I went through it, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've been involved in this like your whole life, it sounds like. I mean, not maybe the diksha, but this kind of daily meditation you're saying you could do from a young age.
It's funny because only through hindsight that I could see the role that my divine or grace played in my life. Like when I was young, I used to go to church and have these prayers internally, just myself, and I was there with my parents and I was a teenager. But I have these prayers like, okay, I know that life is a little bit more about just going to school and getting a job and retiring. Like, show me, God, like what are we here to do? So I had these prayers and I thought that was normal. And then as I grew older, I was, of course, following my Catholic faith, but I was also searching to understand or know God in different ways. So that brought me to like studying Kabbalah and some Jewish traditions, because
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism came from Christianity, Christianity from Judaism. So I kind of followed that. But then I opened up to different things and I started meditating. In my early 20s, I was doing a lot of meditation, and I was doing a lot of like kind of other practices like pagan per se. They have a lot of honoring nature and stuff like that. But since I was born and raised Catholic, I felt this Catholic guilt about it. And it wasn't till later when I started really to develop spiritually how I could see that that whole growth was all necessary, you know?
You had to go through all those things.
Yeah, I went through all those things, and it became really personal, and it wasn't, from going to a church or sanctuary, but it was from me having like some kind of direct relationship with what I feel is God, what I feel is like my creator. You know, that's when it became a huge personal search, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Wow. I guess we've all got a different path, and we got here some way, but yours is interesting.
Yeah, well, when we talk about it, if there's, nearly 8 billion people on this planet, of course there's going to be 8 billion ways that we view spirituality or view God. And even if we go to the same church or practice the same things, we're going to have those slight differences, slight variations, you know?
Yeah.
So if there is 8 billion expressions of spirit or 8 billion expressions of God. Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it too. And then that gets rid of ego if you're not so worried about, I'm right. There's 8 billion people with a different expression, and that's okay. My expression is okay. It might not be exactly yours, but it's okay too.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. All right. I guess we are going to start the Awakened Diksha. I'm excited
Okay.
when you're ready.
Yeah, that sounds good. So what we could do is we could just sit and gently close our eyes, and if our listeners, they are in a place to do so, they could close their eyes and just simply take some large deep breaths and center themselves into that space, and then seek to have that connection with your divine, your God, Mother, Father, Earth, whatever that may be. And in that connection you could ask your God or your divine if you can experience this awakening. And we'll go ahead and give the Diksha now.
guess we should talk a little bit more. Thanks for the blessing again, but about you're going to be doing this for us on January 11th at the next LFO experience. And then there's some other things that you might be sharing with us at that LFO.
Yeah, absolutely. The LFO experience that we had this past time was huge. It was really great. It was such a collection of lightworkers and experiential practice that on January 11th, when we have the LFO again, we want to just continue that and make sure that it's not something that we just get together and have some kind of teachings, but we really get to experience that connection. So we'll do the meditation like we do. We'll have the Oneness Awakening Diksha and hands-on Diksha there. And then we'll also do what we call breath work or Kundalini meditation, which helps accelerate, spiritual growth. So if anyone is looking for acceleration, that's a good place to be. So we'll have those things there. We'll do meditation, we'll do some breath work, and of course the Diksha blessing. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be beautiful. And then you were telling us off air a little bit about this new process that's coming out with Sri Bhagavan.
Yeah.
And how it's awakening people even quicker. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the Oneness Blessing again is to facilitate this awakening, spiritual awakening, and the person or practitioner or recipient. And I think we all experienced already the shift that occurred or is occurring, when they talk about 12, 12, 12, and last year how this time was like very auspicious. I mean, at the time, I wasn't, I know necessarily these type of things, or aside from the fact that it had like a, Mayan calendar, like reference or undertone. But when we talk about this at Oneness University, this shift is occurring. It was already occurring, and everything that we do is just to aid in the acceleration of this shift. So a spiritual awakening or just awakening, enlightenment, those type of things is just the next evolution of where we see humanity going. We've made agricultural advancements, and of course we had various like corporate advancements, and then technological advancements. But then this is something different, where the advancement of the species is going to express itself in a different way, and it's not necessarily religion, but it's a spirituality, more closeness of being, with our Creator, what we truly represent. So Sri Bhagavan has darshans or classes or teachings, and a lot of these are available online. And a few of the ones he spoke of is just how this process is going to continue to accelerate. And even with the last year, there was a certain number of people that they wanted to see awakened, so that these people would affect the people around them without necessarily doing much. Their quietness of mind, them being in the present, and them being non-reactionary or less reactionary with arguments, or when the ego comes into mind, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that these awakened people will affect people just by their being, just by going to other places with them and have an effect on society. Well, the acceleration of this shift is talked about a lot, because after we reach like these milestones of how many people awakened would be critical mass to affect others, we're going to also see more things like how our divine manifests in our life. And just from a real like basic standpoint, there's different ways that we are experiencing God realization or experiencing oneness with our God. And just to keep it really basic, one is noticing the divine hand in our life, where we see reflectively that, oh, okay, I remember when I was here and it led me to that, and then I got this job and that put me in position to do this. We start to notice the divine hand guiding our life or throughout our life. And then the next kind of stage, so to speak, is where we get with that connection, where we start to speak with our divine, and we'll speak like not only like through prayer or meditation, but we'll begin to speak on a regular basis throughout the day, sometimes even asking for advice like, okay, this is this is what I need to do, should I do this or should I do that? And then having that conversation, but actually hearing some kind of response, whether it's internal or a sign that points to say, do this now, kind of thing. So that's like another stage. And then next after that, we would really start to see not only just seeing the divine hand or listening and speaking with our divine, but actually experiencing our divine like as if they were a friend, like going throughout our day, walking and talking with our divine, and actually experiencing as if they are there, someone holding hands with us. And during this type of process, and then finally the ultimately after awakening, enlightenment, and God realization, ultimately our divine or our divine presence will be so real to us that it'll like physically manifest, or we'll be able to see it, much like we were children and had imaginary friends. We'll see our divine, we'll feel his presence, we'll be in our home and feel and see our divine. And during these like latter processes, we can ask our divine for like awakening, or ask them for healing, directly. And it'll be less like, the iconic divine that we're maybe used to, and more like a very personal relationship where they walk and talk with us, where we feel them, see them, where we ask their advice and they respond to us. So part of the acceleration of that is, instead of doing the long work like Siddhartha did, like Buddha did, where he sat under a tree and went through the processes within himself, stayed with what is, went through those clearings, and then tapped into this like oneness with everything, which could take a long time. Sri Bhagavan, the founder of Oneness University, was saying, of course, the acceleration, the next step is really having this close relationship with our divine, so that when we ask for these things, they're just given, that we really start to develop that relationship where we don't have to do the long route, so to speak.
And does that, what I'm hearing you say, I'm not sure if I'm right, is that like when you get to the point where, and this isn't about material things, but you can manifest more quickly because you're working right there with your divine. Your life starts going the way that the divine wants, and you start manifesting more. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at Unity, we teach a prosperity course called the 4T, but in the entire book, it has divine grace in it. It has speaking about God, it has speaking about being in the flow. And I bring that up because when we have a closer relationship with our divine, with our source, with our spirit, then of course the period of manifestation from wishing to fruition, it just gets closer and closer. That's only because we developed this relationship, and we could call it like the universe, like in The Secret, or we could call it God, like in everyday normal context of our relationship, or our divine, our personal divine. And the more we grow closer, the shorter that period is going to be.
Because I've noticed things like that changing, and I've with friends too, like you can see that because of the shift that is taking place, a little bit of that's happening anyways. Now maybe not as good as it could be, but I'm just saying I've seen it a little bit now from this. Now I always, for years until recently, talk to my higher self, ask my higher self the questions the same way I guess you would your divine. Would you consider your higher self your divine?
Absolutely. It's like a connection to your divine. It's like that your higher self is the aspect that communes directly with your God and the source of all things. And I like the term higher self because it's very relatable. We want to be better, we want to operate on a different plane, and we could communicate with that with calling it our higher self. But then above that, then whether we call them angels or guides or that kind of thing, then that's another step. And then above that, we could have our source of God or spirit, or that oneness, and those are all like along the same progression of developing that relationship with our God,
and our divine, our personal divine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, when is this class? Because now I want to go. This Unity one.
The class for the acceleration class.
Well, that too, but the prosperity one that you were talking about.
Oh, the prosperity course. Okay. Yeah, we're actually having that early this this first quarter. I'm not sure of the date. I think it might be in latter January. But yeah, I bring it up because again, when we're talking about that flow, or being in this manifestation phase, it is about being in the flow, and that shift of consciousness is more about shifting to being in the flow than how it was before, where we're always in resistance, or we're trying to control things, or we're trying to control work, or control what the next stage in our life is going to be, when our higher self may know, and we might disagree with that, or because it doesn't look exactly the way we want it, but of course our higher self or our connection with God may have a better idea, and that shift is also shifting, or affects the shift in how we remain in the flow, where we're getting out of our own way, and really doing the work that we're supposed to be doing, or manifesting things, that we may think we want, but then we manifest into our existence, our presence, the growth that we need, or things that will help us develop, spiritually, or as just personal development, whatever that may be.
So this is what that class teaches then. It helps you along those lines.
Yeah.
Wow, I need that class. I think it sounds fabulous.
I've actually attended that class 3 times in a row.
Really?
Yeah, it's a 12-week prosperity course, but the 4T offered at Unity Center and the Valley is just it's a way for people to look at manifestation and look at prosperity, but with God or divine in every page of the book. So.
Which to me, I think that's the hardest thing. I've always felt that internally, like, well, I'm trying to manifest, but I don't know, if it's my soul's purpose. Maybe it's a ego's purpose that wants it, and I can never get that balance, it seems, until you surrender. I mean, I have, gotten a little better at it by surrendering and going, okay, let go and let God have this. I get it that way, but this class sounds like it would really help with that process.
Yeah, I think, with awakening and the shift in consciousness that we all experience, or the shift into a spiritual shift and awakening, we all just get reminded or retuned or introduced to our higher self, to that God presence in our life daily. And of course, that is almost completely the opposite with how we were raised, and thinking of acquiring things to be happy, and then that exists in the collective consciousness, that we need to acquire things, or we have to have this to be prosperous. So when the shift occurs for an individual personally, they start to notice the prosperity in their lives. They start to notice the abundance in their lives. Not necessarily money per se, but they'll start to notice the abundance of life, because they're more aligned with being in the flow, with being, living in that divine flow, which we're all in. It's just whether we struggle with it, or not. So.
Yeah, I think, well, it is a big struggle. I think the first time I realized, I wasn't in control, and a big lesson for me was when my daughter died about 15 years ago. And then I had to surrender then and just go, you're not in control. You think you are, and you think you can make, then you start learning that, okay, you got to go with the flow. There is a purpose, and you have to start going with that. And then, I was really strong at it then, because I just knew. I had this deep knowing that this had to happen. I had to go through this. But then, you get busy in your life, and, I want to sell 40 houses this year, or whatever you want to do. And you're trying to control it, and you get caught back up in that control thing, And so for me, I'm just using me as an example. So I have to keep surrendering. I'm sure a lot of people do, to get back in the flow, to where higher self and divine can guide you.
That's right. I mean, that's why we're all talking about this in the first place. I mean,
Right.
experiencing Diksha, the blessing, or some modality, or some kind of meditation. It's all about aligning ourselves with Source, and that affects all aspects of our life. Because even in health, for example, if we're aligning ourselves with God, aligning ourselves with Source, aligning ourselves with our divine, then we'll tend to take better care of our physical body. This God temple that we have the opportunity to reside in, and then we won't do things like eat junk food, or have bad habits, those kind of things, because that's not of the flow. The flow is just really being healthy, and really getting out of our own way to remain healthy. It's only when we start operating outside the flow, or operating from ego, operating from good looks, that maybe, okay, we'll want to eat some junk food, or go party or pick up some bad habits. All those things again are not in the flow. Yeah.
That's a good point to bring up right there. And the more I've noticed, a lot of people, they talk about this too, after experience Diksha, they start wanting to change. They start changing their bad habits. It's easier to make the changes too that you may have already created, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not sure what comes first. I mean, for some people, they may live that life and then their spiritual practice or their search. And I don't mean spiritual practice or search as someone being a monk and going off into a cave to meditate. Just everyday people like us, we just understand or realize that there's something more to life and we want to better ourselves. Just keeping it really practical level. So instead of when we go to work, instead of buying a lunch every day, we'll want to bring a healthy lunch or choose a healthy alternative. So that's just growth.
Nice.
So we continue to grow and expand fully.
Yeah. You were saying something about the classes with Sir Bhagavan that are coming up too, right? Is there?
Oh, the darshan. I was really speaking about the classes at the Oneness University.
Okay.
So Diksha, or the Oneness Blessing, came from a school in India. It's called Oneness University, and that's where we received this gift from. So they have classes and processes there. Deborah Upsar, the other trainers there now, and a few of our community. Joey Belovin, Mary Liz Manzan, Susan McQuarrie, Barendra, they're all going to be in this deepening. So the deepening process in India is just another way to, of course, they're expanding their search and going to where this Diksha was given to us. But for everyone here in Las Vegas, we have the meetup, Oneness Las Vegas meetup page, and we also have onenesslasvegas.com, where they can find where our local meditations are and experience it here with us, with me and you, and just grow together as a community.
And there's some that they can watch. Say if they were in another state or another country or whatever, they can also look on that site, right, and do some of the meditations.
Yeah, absolutely. On onenesslasvegas.com, we have Deborah Upsar, who's the lead. I call her the lead or senior trainer here. She has links to video darshans with Sri Bhagavan, the founder, and also her live stream page where she does teachings. I'll be featured on there occasionally to give the blessing, and she has a lot of teachings on her page. It's a huge resource.
So you'd go to the Oneness University, but then you go to her page?
Oh, the onenesslasvegas.com,
Las
yeah.
Vegas,
It has all the links there, yeah.
Has all the links, yeah, because I was trying to direct someone to it the other day, and I wasn't positive, so that's good. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much for being here today, and looking forward to January 11th and going through another experience with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I feel so comfortable with you, and it's easy to talk about spirituality and our experiences when we're doing it with friends. So January 11th is an awesome date for an awesome experience, and I'm so excited about it too.
And this Thursday, anybody that wants to come to Diksha at the Unity Center.
That's right. We are at the Unity Center in the Valley, and that's Thursday at 7 p.m. We'll be there. I'll be there. You'll be there?
I'll be there too.
Sounds good.
I missed it lately a couple times, and I love it. So, it is so great to have someone like you that you can just grow just by having these conversations, that you can learn, which I learned some things today, which I'm very appreciative of, and got Diksha, and I feel wonderful. So Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks everybody for listening today, and we will see you next Sunday at 4 p.m. for the LFO Experience.